Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to all the participants, moderator, and our esteemed panelists. I'm Aisha, and I welcome you all in this 90-minute session on women in leadership, achieving gender equality. The session will be moderated by Zaufyshan, and when we have 6 panelists from different industries and 1 international panelist from Canada, Rosemary. They will be introduced by our moderator, Zaufyshan. But first, I would like to share some housekeeping rule with all of you. As you can see on the screen, all the attendees, I request all the attendees to mute yourself and switch off your videos to avoid any background noise and distraction. If you have any technical issue during the session, you can log out and log back in. This session is being recorded and will be later available on Octara's YouTube channel. It's also going live on Octara's Facebook page. And I request you all to, submit your questions in the chat box during the panel discussion, and we'll take it towards the end. So if you find any technical experienced any technical difficulties during the session, you can put it in the channel chat panel, or you can contact my colleague Sarimati, whose email ID is coming on the screen. So I would like to take the opportunity of talking about our digital platform, which was initiated during the pandemic. It is called TCS Octara Web Mall Plus. It's a brainchild of our CEO Jamil Janjua, aim at providing a one-window solutions to everyone who's to HR and corporates and anyone who is interested in self and professional development. We provide all sorts of complementary e-learning programs like webinars, talks, podcasts, online trainings, e-newsletters, and much more under this platform. So if it's not restricted to any one particular subject, rather it provides a wide variety of subjects under this platform. So if you want to become a part of this group or gain access of all these programs, you can sign up to register in the link coming on your screen. And I'll also paste this link in the chat box later.
Hi, hello. My name is Jamil Janjua, and I'm the CEO of TCS Octara. Octara is a company that belongs to the TCS group of family, and it has established an enviable reputation as being one of the leading executive training service providers in Pakistan. A large part of our success is attributed to our chairman, Mr. Khalid Wan, whose personal commitment to encourage the development of the people at both TCS and at the Pakistan level. It has been very, very stimulating and very, very inspiring for us. We take great pride in delivering high quality learning experiences which are based on extensive research of training needs, after which programs are created, working with the best possible trainer, the content developed to address the needs, then marketed as a series of leadership acceleration programs, and finally delivered, ensuring all logistics is taken care of to ensure a high quality learning experience. Our team motto at Octara is to help you succeed. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Once again, welcome to all. I would request the participants to kindly mute yourselves and turn off your videos. So now I would like to formally commence our panel discussion with the introduction of our moderator, Zaufyshan, who is a seasoned corporate trainer and a life coach experience. And a life
Aisha,
coach. Yeah.
Can you check whose microphone is there? Because they might not be aware of that. So can you see किनका microphone का जो है वो active है? उनको हम directly कह सकें so that we can begin.
Okay. Okay, so I'm requesting Faisal Saab and Batul to please turn off, mute yourself because that is creating a distraction and a noise. So kindly mute yourself. Batul and Faisal Anwar Saab.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Happy Women's Day 2021. I welcome you all. I welcome the panelists and I welcome all of the audience. And thank you for your cooperation. When a lot of audiences come there, of course, there is some lag if that happens. It just won't be me. Any of the panelists can also take over. We are in this together. This will be a knowledge sharing session. And it is my honor to have all of our very esteemed panelists over here. I will introduce them and then we will go on to questions. You can put, as Aisha said, you can put the questions in the chat box and one of the lovely Octara team can forward them. Can you please mute your microphone, my dear? I can hear my own echo. In fact, I would also request the panelists that when the other panelists are speaking, if they could also mute their microphones. So here's to a wonderful, wonderful session together. I'd like to introduce the panelists. And to be fair to them, they have a wide range of experiences, but we don't have enough time because we'd rather listen to what they have to. I'm supposed to be moderating, so you can't mute me. So I'll go ahead with introducing the wonderful, wonderful panelists. I'll start with Tehmina Shafi Khan. She is Head of Learning and Development at MCB Bank Limited. And I requested all of them to have a motto, a mission, a personal mission statement or a tagline. And her tagline is challenging the status quo, which is very much in tune to the Women's Day and this particular talk as well. Then our other panelist is Rosemary Fernandez. Met her 20 years ago. We were together at a conference organized by Octara. And she's a professional certified coach by International Coaching Federation. And her tagline is, my passion is to move people from overwhelm to an abundance mindset. Rosemary, we have to have another talk on abundance mindset as well. Then I would like to welcome Sania Sattar. She is GM Head of Communications, Sustainability and Special Projects, FrieslandCampina, Engro, Pakistan Limited. And I love the tagline, nothing is impossible. I used to live for 18 years in Dubai, so picked up some Arabic, tried to learn it as well. In Arabic, they say, La shay mustahil, which means impossible is nothing. It's just a twist on the word. Sania, love that. Then we have Faiza Yousuf. She's the founder of WomenInTechPK and co-founder Code Girls. And I will ask her what her tagline is because I seem to be missing it here. My bad. I'll come to you, Faiza. Don't worry. People will hear what you're passionate about. And then we have Syed Sajjad Raza. He's Organizational Development Manager, SSGC. And his personal motto is performance coach who challenges you to be better. Yes, the difference between a mentor and a coach is somebody who challenges you, pushes you to see your own potential. Then we have Jalal Karamali. He's the Assistant General Manager, Human Resource at EFU. EFU name has been there since our childhood, so it's easy to recognize. And I love this line, and I'll share what Rumi says about it as well. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in, by Leonard Cohen. Jalal, there is a quote by Rumi as well, which is, the wound is the place where the light enters. Love this tagline. So are we ready, panelists? Shall we start? The first question I am going to be asking Sania is, calls to increase gender parity have been sweeping the globe for many years with varying levels of change. How do we localize the rise of women in the context of our culture and country. So please, I know that Engro is a lot into diversity and inclusion as well, so would love to hear your views on it.
Okay, well, first of all, Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thank you for having me here. To me, diversity isn't just a buzzword to sort of pepper corporate literature with. It's a shift in how corporations innovate and how we grow our businesses. And all of us really need to have a diversity agenda, which not only sees women in leadership, but it ensures that hiring is equitable as well. As a country, we have to pause and really take stock of where we are in our journey and where we really want to be. Identify mistakes of the past and internally and collectively, which is really very important, how we want to fix those. And it has to be a sustainable change, because otherwise, it really won't work. We know that women constitute a large percentage of the population and are economic contributors in every strata of society, from rural villages to urban centers. Yet we've had to fight twice as hard to be here and continue to work twice as hard for opportunities and prosperity. And this is just in addition to some of the issues on gender-based discrimination and harassment or otherwise that we face. So it's important to develop a framework for progression for women in this country, in the corporate sector. We have to have laws which mandate education for children, including girls. We have to have laws that protect underage children from working. Women should be safe, whether it's driving a car or walking on the street, without fear of objectification or harassment. And this requires energy to be expended on both sides of the equation. And the general populace really have to have their perspectives change in terms of education and information, media understanding, and have an enforceable system of repercussions that work for us. So, all of that, but also look at tech today. Women make excellent entrepreneurs, and we need to continue to encourage them to stimulate our microeconomies, which will have a beneficial impact on our economy and our currency, our country's position, and in the world itself as well. So we must have incentives that are aligned for any number of parties in any situation if the strategy is in place. And we see it all over the world. There are dedicated venture capital firms which invest in businesses for women, tax incentives to incubators, to marketplaces, and we need to see how we can foster that into our culture and our environment, into our country here in Pakistan as well. So those are just some of the thoughts that I had on this question. You're on mute, sorry.
Coming back. I didn't want there was background noise. And what is being done within your organization? You said localize the rise of women. So because you still have about 2 minutes for your question timing. So can you share some of the initiatives which Engro has taken for this particular thing?
So at FrieslandCampina, Engro, Pakistan, I don't know how many of you know the history of Engro itself. It has its heritage and its name in the country. Our farmers are the backbone of our supply chain. And for us, that's where it all starts. We do a lot of work through our dairy development program for our farmers. And this incorporates women as well. So we've got many programs that we're working on. I think there's someone who's not on mute.
Please. And mute them. Not Sania. Unmute Sania, please. You can unmute yourself, Sania. Usually they do for all, mute all. Yeah, that's why it's easier.
Got it.
Great.
So you see, that's where our start is at the base level, where we help train and develop women farmers to become entrepreneurs and be able to do more for the society in which they are operating. And moving on from that, we've now also, we've hired some women milk collectors into the system, into the supply chain, which is sort of a big step towards taking this forward. And that's at the base level. If you move on towards the corporate side, the business angle of it, we have women in field sales. We're hiring more and more as we go along. We've got women in leadership roles. who are mentors, who provide a safe space for other women within the organization. And these are some of just the base things that we're doing as an organization. Of course, we're a part of a global organization as well. FrieslandCampina itself is doing so much for gender diversity. Yeah.
Thank you, Sania, and I can corroborate that because I have been to 2 factories in Sattar and in Saival, and I saw women in the lab for research, R&D, etc., and testing. They were there at night as well. They had night shifts as well, and I saw great progress. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
And that's where the support starts, because we can have women in the night shift, but it can't be possible unless you give them the support that is required, the safety, the space, the ability to be able to do their best. So, our motto is from grass to glass, and for us, our entire supply chain, we incorporate and we help and we support women through and through.
Very good. My next question to you is, how does that change permeate to our personal lives, and what kind of precedents do we want to set so that we can build upon it? Also in your personal life or people around you, as well as your corporate life, please, Sania.
So, I'll just build on what we were talking about. Multinationals, organizations within the country, within the world really, and women in leadership roles, we all have to do our part to make an environment, to make a sustainable change. That's what's really important here. The basic things like commuting to work, you'd be surprised how prevalent this problem is. Something as simple as that becomes a battle in the seamlessly endless list of things that women have to do on a daily basis. I don't think that there are some of the things and elements in our culture as well that have been scrutinized enough that need to be. It's important that we put those systems in place, that we have a safe space for women within organizations where they're able to go and talk. It's important that we have policies and structures in place, that base level requirements are there to protect and to help and support and also guide women to do their best. With COVID, it's been difficult for us all. I have 2 kids, and it's been difficult for us all to manage the home and the work as well as sort of being away physically from office as well. So those are things that are really important, the support structure. And if we don't have that, then it becomes very difficult for everybody. We have to work from home a lot while taking care of the house, again, the children, the kitchen. Supportive families and companies go a long way. And this has to be the rule, not the exception. That's what's important over here. I've lost you, Zaufyshan.
I said once if we have more time, I'll come back to you. I'll thank you. This was really wonderful to hear all the initiatives and your personal passion towards it. Thank you. So Jalal, before I ask you a question, I would like to know more about your motto or your tagline. There's a crack in everything. So what exactly do you mean with that? Jalal? Jalal, you there? We'll go on to Faiza.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Jalal. Perfect. Hello.
I wanted to give, hi, assalamu alaikum, everyone. I wanted to give, I don't have a motto. I tried very hard. I don't have one. But I wanted everybody, and I thought it apropos to this year's International Women's Day tagline also, which is about challenging, and challenging in a positive and constructive way, becoming agents of change. And you can only change something that needs changing. And if we look at everything, our structures in our society, our relationships, there is always that little crack. And I see it as a message of hope that where you see that crack, there you see the most potential for change. Where there you see the most potential for growth. I think the Japanese also have a concept. I didn't know it was a Rumi quote, by the way. That's amazing. I must look that up. But there's a Japanese word for it, basi, something like that. But basically, it translates into the flaw that reveals true beauty. And and I think that for all of my women colleagues, And for all the women participants here today, I thought it would be a good message to send that there is always light and there is always hope.
Thank you, Jalal. And the question which I'll be asking you is very close to my heart because it is about gender inclusivity. But at what point does the question of gender inclusivity and participation become irrelevant to the availability and quality of managerial and leadership talent in an organization? And how can the organizations, and how can any organization actually reach this stage? Because it's become a cliche, everybody is talking about it, but when it comes to implementation, what is being done about it? Kindly share.
That's yes. Therein lies the rub. Everything that we know about modern org psychology, about modern HR, about modern theories of leadership say that the theory of differences, which is the theory of differences between genders, is incorrect. In fact, there is no such thing now as women leadership. There is only leadership. And men and women are both equally prone towards being good leaders or bad leaders. It is only in the practice of leadership that that individuals can rise and shine. However, there is, and I will add this, there is scientific evidence emerging that proves that women are actually more amenable to be taught and coached. They make better students of leadership than men do. That, I think, is very interesting. Speaking from an organizational perspective, what we see is that once women pass a certain career threshold and enter into the leadership pipeline, their rise to the top then becomes quite smooth, provided you have transparent and equitable leadership development structures in place. And I emphasize the word transparent and equitable. So at that, once a woman has reached that stage in her career, then inclusivity and becomes less of a question, and the quality of your leadership pipeline becomes more. Which then leads me to your question. At what point, once a woman has entered that pipeline, you do not need those inclusivity roles. So at what point, whether it is in organization structures or whether it is in tenure or grade, do you need to stop doing that? In my view, I think that point is, say, after the age of 35 and above middle management, I would say. Because why? Okay. I don't know if you know this. There are certain statistics in Pakistan about women participation in management. They have risen from 9% to 20% over the last 7 years. Only 25% of women in Pakistan who hold university degrees actually work in companies. 50% of all women in Pakistan work, but they're in labor, not in corporations. And out of all your hypo and leadership development programs, only 13% of them are women. The other 87% of them are all men. So in my view, that point is where your hypo programs begin. And most hypo programs begin below the middle management level, at the intake level. And I think it is that point where, and everything below that point is where you desperately need gender and inclusivity programs managed by HR, backed by very strong cultures and a clear leadership direction and vision that is funneling women into the hypo program. But once women enter those hypo programs and they grow from hypo into leadership programs, from what we see and what I observe, most leadership and hypo programs, and I'm sorry, I'm speaking entirely from an HR perspective, once they cross a certain level of middle management into senior management and their careers survive that long, you don't need gender and inclusivity programs. You need very robust leadership and mentoring and coaching programs.
May I just, taking on from what you were saying, even though there's a very small percentage that survives till very senior management positions, because when I conduct the trainings of senior management, I would be surprised, and there some are multinationals and some are other corporates, I do not see them. But because you say that it's a smooth path, but the other challenges are also there. if there were more women who do cross over to senior management, perhaps they would also have an impact on the hiring practices. Because the main thing is hiring practices of getting a buy-in from other senior managers and ensuring that they are given a percentage of women that needs to be hired for their own department. Usually, you know, the unconscious bias takes over and everything. So I hear you. So I love the point that you start at an early stage and have a program so that they can transition up the corporate ladder. The next question is, our current notions and practices of leadership development and leadership pipeline assume continuity of tenure and availability for coaching and mentoring of future leaders. But you've already kind of said it in your earlier questions. But again, what role can organization and individual women professionals play to overcome this hurdle?
I'm going to go back to your commentary on my. I'm going to go back to your commentary on my question, and the answer is really quite there. Actually, women don't stick. They do not stick in organizations. If that number, only 13% of all hypo participants are low, it's those 13% of the women that are interested in pursuing their careers. Go back to my earlier statistics, 25% of all women who hold university degrees work. My single largest reason for women turnover are stages of family life. It is voluntary turnover. And that's what happens. It is very rare that women will transition back from their family lives or choose to continue. And I use the word choose to continue to have family lives and professional lives at the same time, whether voluntary or involuntary, whether they are making that choice or that choice is being made for them. But it happens. It's unfortunate, but it happens. It is a question. So, and I'll go back to something that Sania, my colleague Sania said, and I respectfully disagree with her on one thing, which is when she talked about recruitment and induction. I am now slowly starting to come around to the thought that no, our recruitment and induction practices need a bias, desperately need a bias, but they need a reverse bias. We need to be hiring more women because as I said, remember, as I said, it's after the age of 35. So what's happening before the age of 35, between the ages of 23 to 35, that's where most women are getting married, they're starting families. So if we hire more women into our workforce, a disproportionately larger percentage of women into our workforce, we need a positive bias in our recruitment, fill our pipeline with talented, ambitious women, intelligent women who are looking to build their careers, and then provide them with the culture, the tools, and the organizational support that they need. Hopefully that's one part of the equation that we can fill. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about the personal side of the equation, but then we do the best that we can here. So,
Jalal, if I may just interrupt you here, but there are very few organizations, okay, they have a personal life, they are juggling two worlds, personal and professional, and they have children. But, you know, sometimes organizations don't provide that kind of a platform. How many organizations have daycare centers there? Or, you know, and what my concern more is the unconscious bias. Just as you said, when I talk to a lot of people who are in hiring positions, they say exactly that, you know, I hire a woman, a fresh grad, and then she's going to get married and then she's going to leave. That is a risk with men as well today, especially the millennials. The male millennials also are job hopping all the time, but that kind of unconscious bias does not come across. It's usually when a female has to be hired, even if they don't feel it, it's so unconscious. That's why it's called that you don't even realize. And they, even if there was the same kind of potential in both, but still, why risk it if you are sure that there's going to be a high turnover as well? What do you say about that, Jalal? Just in 2 minutes before I go to Faiza.
Less than 20% of organizations in Pakistan actually extend their gender inclusivity programs to the recruitment stage. Less than 20%. So it comes down to the nature and the character of the leadership of the organization. Culture is like rain. It flows from top to bottom. From here, I believe the solution only is simply this. There needs to be a very concentrated and strong push from the very senior most level where your culture is set and where the leadership and the vision of an organization is disseminated, that yes, we need to be hiring more women. For example, for my department, I have a gender inclusivity target that is discussed with me in my performance appraisal by my CEO every year. Our gender and inclusivity targets here at EFU Live come from the very top. I disseminate those into my team in my capacity as the head of HR into the very practices and policies that we in HR follow for when we forward a candidate, how we shortlist a candidate, and how we interview a candidate, and then how we bring them on board, how we induct them, and how we lead them through their very critical first 6 months of their careers here with us. All of that is done with gender being one part of the equation, but an important part, and it is something that we are conscious of. But it comes from the very top. If it's not coming from the top, you can't sit and talk about middle management induction processes because there's no incentive for them to change.
I agree. Thank you for saying that. So all of you who are listening there, and if we have some head of organizations, once you decide that there has to be a certain percentage of gender inclusivity and diversity, you can make that happen. Faiza, are you there, my dear? I'd like to ask you a few questions. Oh, great. Faiza, I'm so sorry. Can you share your motto with me? Somehow I missed that.
No problem at all. So I shared it with Aisha that I think my motto would be that inclusion is the way forward, and that's the only way for all of us to have a better future.
Perfect. I love that. So Faiza, can you tell me that the initiatives being taken like Women in Tech PK and Code Girls, how are they helping in gender equity?
Right. So my work is around technology. So both these initiatives are tech-based. Women in Tech PK is a non-profit community that works with women to kind of help them band together, solve problems, discuss strategies, and kind of we do a lot of activities around making sure that there are no panels. So if we see panels with only men, a lot of times I kind of jump in and basically recommend them women who are qualified for being part of those panels, not just on the stage but also off the stage. We make sure that women are present in any kind of event or any kind of gathering that is happening. Women in Tech PK also do a lot of we built a lot of digital footprint for these women, so you will see us publishing their profiles, publishing their interviews. We also developed a directory for professional women in collaboration with Pasha that is called prowomen.pk. So I'm pretty sure that a lot of women who are part of this panel can just go and check themselves. I'm pretty sure you're there, and if you're not there, just send me an email and I'll make sure that you're part of that directory. Code Girls basically solve the problem with the tech pipeline. That is that not a lot of women apply for jobs. So what we do is that we train women on coding skills and on a lot of professional skills, and then make sure that they get placement opportunities. So we are doing a lot of placements after graduating quite a bit of these women. So currently we have graduated around 600 women, and over 120 of them being placed in the tech industry on technical positions. So initiatives like these, basically these are small initiatives, these are not an organization or a company-based initiatives. These are community-based initiatives where a lot of the work is being done by women for women.
Yes, thank you, Faiza. That's good. A drop in the ocean, but still it has a significance and it can create a wave. So whatever, in fact, all of our audiences, if you help even a few people achieve something in life, or my motto is save one life at a time, save the world, saving one person at a time. So great initiative, Faiza. So how do you feel that COVID-19 has been detrimental towards the career progression of women?
For women who are already part of the workforce, it has been a disaster because schools were off. We saw that a lot of women left their jobs because they had to take care of their kids. Kids were not going schools. A lot of families who depend on daycare centers, they were also off. A lot of families who depend on, caretakers, they were also not available. So we saw that a lot of women resigned from their jobs in the tech industry. I'm talking about not just local tech ecosystem, but also in the international tech ecosystem. We saw that majority of the people who lost their jobs or who left their jobs were women. So because women have, more care work responsibilities. When it comes to opportunities, in tech for women, I think tech was one of the very few sectors that thrived in that during that pandemic. So we saw a lot of openings coming up in the local tech ecosystem. We are still seeing there are hundreds of thousands of positions open in the local tech ecosystem currently, and the industry does not have enough people to fill that demand. So that's where programs like Code Girls or Tech Karo comes in. uh, Also, we are also seeing one more kind of silver lining in this situation is that organizations are getting pretty comfortable with the idea of remote work, and also they're hiring women for part-time positions because they know that they cannot work full-time. So there are few bad things, few good things. Tech sector overall had a comparatively better, I guess, comparatively better environment and openness when it comes to gender inclusivity, because there you will see a lot of work is being done because of communities like Women in Tech PK or Pakistani Women in Computing or Circle. There are a lot of organizations around that, and also Pasha has been very active when it comes to working on gender diversity issues. Currently, I'm part of Pakistan Software House Association's Gender Diversity Committee, and there is a lot of work being done in terms of making sure that software companies have the right perks and policies to ensure better support to working parents and also especially to women.
Thank you. And I feel that COVID and work from home has given people the confidence as well, who thought that they could not work from home, or because the organizations had a very set time frame in mind for their employees. So on one hand, as you said, it's been good, but detrimental also. Thank you so much, Faiza, for sharing these. Rosemary, how are you? And please tell me, what time is it in Canada?
It's 5:40 almost, 5:40 in the morning. So it's early. It's a great way to start International Women's Day, don't you think?
Absolutely. You will see the sunrise and a fresh start. Absolutely. So, Rosemary, I'd like to ask, what role does society in general play in gender equality or in gender equity?
Well, as you all also know, I have an HR background, and I kind of transitioned into becoming a coach. And so, you shared my tagline about having an abundant mindset. And so I've been listening with great interest to the previous speakers, and I'm totally amazed at the progress in Pakistan with gender equality and corporate HR policies that are encouraging women in the workplace. But really, it's an international issue. I sit here in Toronto, and women face the same thing. So it's not a country thing or a culture thing or a religious thing. It's a thing that I would say, coming from the mindset, it's the way we are programmed to think of women's roles and men's roles. And psychological studies have shown us that we are programmed as much as 85% by the time we are 5 years old. Who programs us in those 5 years? Predominantly, right? We spend most of our time with our mothers, right? They do the programming. They're the ones who say girls do this and boys do this, and girls can cry and boys don't cry. And so that programming starts at a very early age. And then by the time we reach 21 and we've done college and we're ready to enter the workforce, we are programmed as much as 95%. And again, so that programming is through the schooling, through the college or university, and then we enter the workforce with this one perspective about women's roles and men's roles. And however, the good news is, and it's not only through coaching, but even individually, the 5% that's left over, that's left unprogrammed, you can delete the 95% programming. And I think that's where it should start. The roots of gender equality begins in the home. You know, the role modeling. I was very fortunate that I came from a very strong female. My mother had a very dominant role in my family, and I have only one brother, and he was raised to be just equal to his three sisters. And so I never grew up with that kind of bias until I started working and I realized that, yes, this is an issue. And I live here in a country where there are laws, there are HR laws that talk about equality. The feminist movement has been ever so strong. It's over 100, International Women's Day has been celebrated for over 100 years in this part of the world. But we still have issues. And so, you know, what COVID has done, COVID has made us more sensitive because we've had to stay at home. We are in isolation. I think it's made us a little more human. And working at home means man and woman are working together at home with the kids. And there has been another realization about the role of the woman looking after children and working. And there's been another kind of awareness. And although one would see statistics, even in this part of the world, that the women have to leave, they are leaving their jobs in order to take care of the home during COVID, but there is also like a post-COVID prediction that most of the part-time jobs that will become available, because they can be done at home, will be done by women. Men would not like to be associated with just a part-time job. They would prefer a full-time job. So there's that shift also happening. And the biggest impact from our neighbors in USA with Black Lives Matter, the whole idea of diversity and inclusion has literally exploded in every field. You know, it's become, people have, huge companies have changed their taglines to show, to demonstrate that they're going to practice diversity and inclusion. And that means not just the name, not the tagline, not just the HR policies, but in actual implementation. Okay, we hire the women. We have laws here that are called employment equity, equity for men and women. But it's not just about hiring the woman. Then what do you do with her? Do you have special programs? Are you going to coach her? Are you going to give her professional development so that she feels included in the workplace and is prepared to move upwards in the ladder? So if we even look, you know, I smile when I look at LinkedIn. We make a special point of advertising first female CEO, first Black CEO, or first South Asian CEO or something. So it means it's still unique. It's still a battle that we have to keep fighting for. And the psychologists say that for real change to change totally, it takes 3 generations. So all these isms, you know, feminism, racism, diversity, for all of that to get evolve, it takes 3 generations, but it has to start somewhere, right? So I think that for women to collaborate and have a joint voice and help each other, because help the way we raise our children, the way we program our children, both female and male, to believe that there's equality, we can do the same things, to strive, to have courage, to lift them when they are falling down. I come from that, yeah, so I'm just sharing, is that creating that abundant mindset.
Right. Wonderful, Rosemary. And I could relate to what you were talking about, your mother being the stronger one. My dad was a strong one, and I had 2 sisters and 2 brothers. But my dad ensured that I had the confidence. He encouraged me to go for debates, dramatics, anything, so that I could develop those skills. My next question is, for all the women who do enter the corporate ladder, how can HR help them facilitate to break the glass ceiling?
The HR department has been given, rightly or wrongly, they have been given the role to hire and to oversee the whole performance of an organization, the hiring, the firing. They're responsible for retention, and so when we start looking at things that, everyday operations with women, is to red flag when a woman is saying something, to listen, to give her that voice when she says, maybe this is not happening, and this is not happening with me. And although we see that the number of women on boards of directors, in chief executive position, it's increasing, but it's at a very crawling pace. Even even in the amount of budget that a company allocates for the professional development of women is lower than what it allocates for men. I'm just saying, talking about it in this part of the world. So, an HR has to become an advocate on behalf of its female employees, to promote them. And as I mentioned, we have laws, employment equity laws here, but one would see that there are, they hire women, but there's ghettoization of jobs for women. And those same women, if they are given the opportunity to, to shadow a man's job or to get the necessary training, those opportunities are not as presented as often as it is presented to their male counterparts. And yes, there are movements now, because the voice of women is getting louder and louder and louder. But I am very optimistic with forums such as these, and I commend Aisha, Tariq, and the team at Octara to have put this on, because it's only through this kind of discussion and awareness that HR people would, it would get absorbed, because repetition brings about change.
That's wonderful. Just 1 minute more with you, because I love all the things that you're saying, Rosemary. But I was having another talk, because Women's Day is a busy time, and everybody knows I'm so passionate about equality and other. But this point was also raised, that even when women enter the board, not just senior management, but they are part of a board as well, and they say something, the other male counterparts can be very dismissive about it as well. They hear it, but don't listen to the person. So these challenges are not just climbing up the corporate ladder, breaking the ceiling, but they continue at every realm of an organization.
I agree with you completely, because, and that's why I talked about voice, and I mean voice in the collective. And so women have to collaborate with each other to raise the volume of that collective voice.
Nice. I love it. And that is the question which I'm going to ask Syed Sajjad as well. Sajjad, hello. continuing on to what Rosemary is saying, how to find your voice in a challenging environment.
Wonderful. Okay. First of all, assalamu alaikum to all the participants, those who have joined from the beginning or about to join. And thank you, particularly Rosemary. That reminds me of, 15, 20 years of the first meeting. And she has always been a very influential. Okay. For me, always impacted the way she talks. I mean, the way she connects. Being a coach, wonderful. Perhaps that's your gift. That's your gift, and you're utilizing it for a greater purpose. And may God be with you to the future endeavors, and the way you are contributing now. uh, First of all, Taji, happy Women's Day to everyone, all the women's and all the men's in particular. मैं आज मेरा एक मैसेज है वो खवातीन के लिए. I'm extremely sorry for that. खवातीन के लिए मेरा मैसेज नहीं है. मेरा मैसेज वुमेन्स डे पे मर्दों के लिए. बहुत सारे रिश्ते हैं जिसमें आप खवातीन को देखते हैं. बहरहाल हजरत अली का एक कौल है, वो मैं सुनाना चाह रहा हूँ आपको कि तमाम वो मर्द हजरात जिनको परवरदिगार ने बेटी की जो है वो नेमत से नवाजा है, अपनी बेटियों से ज्यादा मोहब्बत करो क्योंकि वो तुम्हारे बुढ़ापे का सहारा होती है. Now, here comes. When you are raising them with almost mute voice and mute mindset, मुझे नहीं पता कि वो आपके बुढ़ापे का सहारा कैसे बनेंगे. I don't know. I'm not that intelligent. You have put, a kind of this society in general. Particularly, since we are talking with the majority of the participants are from Pakistan, so I am addressing them. And afterwards, it will be placed on the YouTube and the Facebook. So obviously, the later participants will have a quick view of that. So which is why मैं इसको Duolingo के अंदर इसलिए कर रहा हूँ ताकि they can easily connect to that. वो उसको समझ भी सकें और इस मैसेज को जो है वो समझ भी पाएं और अपने दिल में उतारें. The biggest challenge for everyone, and particularly the bigger one, the challenge is the mindset, the belief system. ये जो हमारा एक माइंडसेट और बिलीफ सिस्टम बना हुआ है, यही सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज है जो आपकी वॉइस को दबा देता है. और जितनी ज्यादा देर तक ये दबी रहती है वो खत्म हो जाती है. You have no voice when you have lived into a certain conditions for way too long, like 20 years, 30 years, 40 years or 50 years. Afterwards you do not have any voice. खत्म हो गई आपकी आवाज. Gone with the winds. और उसी से ही, इसी माइंडसेट से एक बड़ी खूबसूरत सी चीज निकलती है, उसका नाम है LKKG. LKKG, which means लोग क्या कहेंगे. That's such a beautiful one of my most favorite one. लोग क्या कहेंगे. उसके ऊपर you since Zaufyshan, you encouraged us to share the personal story. That's not my personal story, but one of my colleagues, she shared it with me. वो कहती कि जी हम जब यूनिवर्सिटी में थे, MBA कर रहे थे, तो one of my course was in the late evening. और obviously once we are done with the class, तो वो घर पहुंचते पहुंचते through van 11 बज जाते थे. Okay, then उन्होंने कहा जी one of my क्लास फेलो, उसने वो पूरा 1 साल तक वो कोर्स मिस किया so that it will rescheduled and come in the earlier part of the day. और मैंने कहा why is that? उन्होंने कहा जी उसकी मदर ने उसको सिर्फ एक जुमला कहा था कि 11 बजे जब यूनिवर्सिटी से वापस घर आओगी तो लोग क्या कहेंगे, कहाँ से आ रही है. And one whole year. So you have to, the classic rule is, let me ask all the participants, let me ask you this question. Simple. आप अपनी आवाज तो सुन नहीं रहे, your inner voice, and you expect the outer world to listen to you. Is it something good? I mean, is it very logical thing? You have to listen to your inner voice. You have to listen to your inner voice. And when I say inner voice, I don't mean the complaints that you have towards the injustice of the societal system or the belief system or whatever, the religious interpretation system. Religion, all the religions, they actually protect you from all the 360-degree angle. It's the interpretation which actually jeopardize your rights, and it tells you what you can do and what you cannot. So coming back to the point, देखिए प्लीज अपने अंदर की आवाज को सुनना शुरू करें और आपके अंदर की आवाज जो है वो आपको बता रही है. Just like Zaufyshan must have heard it 20 years ago and she started up, the public speaking. Or Rosemary, one of my role model, she is one of the best person I've ever met. So she must have heard her inner voice, and that inner voice was not complain at all. That I can assure you, and that wasn't the blame as well. कि जी ये it is happening just because of Mr. X, Miss Y, and Mr. Z. No, 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 not at all. You're wrong, absolutely wrong. There is no definition of an inner voice like this. The meaning of inner voice is the creator has given you a certain threshold and a cutting edge. It is your competitive advantage, and that is the inner urge. वो आपसे कुछ कह रही है, but you are so deaf to it. So this is how you can find your inner voice. So please.
Lovely, lovely. As I was sharing about my dad as well, he taught me Allama Iqbal, and because you said such beautiful things in Urdu, so जो आप inner voice का कह रहे हैं कि उसकी आवाज ही नहीं आती है, तो एक शेर है, सुना होगा आपने, अपने मन में डूब कर पाजा सुरागे जिंदगी, तू अगर मेरा नहीं बनता ना बन, अपना तो बन. So वो जो inner voice आप कह रहे हैं ना सज्जाद, वो be true to yourself. There's another quote which says, be true to yourself because everybody else is taken. So just being true to what you really feel, what your dreams are. This is wonderful. Thank you, Sajjad. Any tips for people so that they can progress and empower themselves? One is listen to your inner voice. We have about 2 minutes more with you. So if you would like to give share your knowledge on that to all the women out there. Somebody who don't have a career, somebody who think about it but don't have the courage to do so.
Okay. And there is another thing, extension to that is, and that too is in Arabic. Maybe I don't have an accent like you, but I still can manage. And that is, Man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbahu. That means know thyself, so that you know the God. And in other words, it's a know thyself so that you can be thyself, right? Acha ji, tip number 1, first of all, what do you want? What do you want? And your inner self will tell you exactly. ठीक है जी, number 1. Number 2, what are your challenges? Your inner challenges. बाहर के नहीं, अब बाहर की बात नहीं हो रही है. We are talking about yourself. What is stopping you? The challenge is you are your own challenge. And now we have to decipher it. What is that challenge? Why you are double guessing yourself? Why you are double guessing yourself, and you unable to understand what you can do and what you cannot. I mean, by 20s, you should be extra sure about these are the things that you can do. Uski limitations kya hai? That you figure it out more by doing it. Okay, ji, number 1 barrier. Jamil Janju, a question to all the panelists. What is the number 1 barrier to advancement for the working of? Okay, maybe the senior
one barrier.
Like
let's do maximum 2 barriers maybe, and I'll go through to the other participants who've spoken. So you tell me what is 1 or 2 biggest barrier women face.
Okay, the biggest barrier that I have explained already is the mindset of the woman, that they quit the competition very easily because the mindset tells it's a man's world. I'm sorry, wrong, it's a God's world. It's not a man's world. ठीक है जी, man is being delivered by the woman. So first woman was created, and then she gave the birth to a male or a female and whatever, and afterwards the old mindset used to tell that has been changed कि अच्छा जी से बेटियां ही पैदा करनी. So that is gone. The mindset is the biggest thing, and the man's ego. In fact, my female colleague, she told me, "Ji, it's a belief system, not your genetic system. मर्द नहीं रोता." अच्छा, क्यों मर्द के आंसू नहीं निकलते? निकलते हैं जी, बिल्कुल निकलते हैं. क्या औरतों की तरह रो रहे हो? Seriously? And she actually opened my eyes. मैंने कहा, yes, you're right. It's a belief system which is so strong कि रोना आ भी रहा हो तो ये सोचकर छोड़ देते हैं कि अच्छा यार औरतों की तरह कौन रोए. Ego, and ego is stopping you to break the glass ceiling. Ego is stopping you. This man ego, so-called man egos, is basically telling us women cannot be wiser than us. So this is the biggest barrier in my opinion.
Lovely. I'd like to ask Sania. Sania, can you share what do you think are the biggest barriers towards women's success? 2, please.
So I think firstly, it's unconscious bias. In my opinion, just generally, and I think maybe building on what Sajad was saying, yes, while I agree it all comes from within, and that's step one, but the environment also has a huge part to play in what happens and what not. And then we push ourselves further, right? So I may say that my family is very supportive, my husband is very supportive, my job, my organization is very supportive. I have everything in place to make the best of my career and to reach all the heights as somebody else may not. Right? So we need to really get past those unconscious biases, and that helps with people, all of us sitting over here, everyone here who can help take that direction forward. And I think building from that, the other thing is taking our learning in our own hands, building on again what Sajad said. It is also up to us. So it has to be a balance. I have to take my learning, my development, my success, my wanting, my opportunities in my own hands and push for it. So those are the two things I think that are really, really, in my opinion, what are important.
Beautiful, Sania. Jalal, two barriers, please, quickly, before we move on to the next panelist. Two barriers women face towards their progress or success.
Everything my participants have said so far, I agree with 100%. I'm just going to add a couple of things. We actually did some research on our turnover and we went back to the women who had left us for family reasons, and we asked them what would it take for them to come back to us. And do you know what we discovered was the single largest barrier that was preventing them from coming back to the office and resuming their career? It wasn't the children. It wasn't the husband. It was the mother-in-law. She's not an employee. So again, I say this because I'm going back to what respected Rosemary said, generational change. I have a great deal of hope for subsequent generation of women professionals, because even if they are abandoning their career lives now, when their daughters enter the professional field, they will have professional mothers. And so with time, I firmly believe that we will be seeing more and more professional women climbing higher and higher in organizations. The second thing, I think that where it comes down to specifically, and we seem to be stuck on tenure. I would like to talk about the act and the practice of leadership itself. And there, I think there is a deficit in, as I pointed out, science says that women are more coachable and amenable to be taught leadership, it appears. There is a lack of teachers, capable, competent, qualified teachers that can take on women and actually coach and mentor and build them up. There are great success stories. 40% of the senior leadership of EFU Life right now, 30 to 40% is women in this organization.
Nice.
There are about 6 heads of departments right now, all professional women in EFU Life. But if I look down the line, there is a very strong need to have those professional women now take on active coaching and mentoring roles and bring up other professional women as their successes.
Great. Thank you, Jalal. Rosemary, just 2 barriers quickly, because we still have Tehmina, with whom I have 2 questions. So 2 barriers you think women face towards their success or progress in life.
I would ditto what everything that the other panelists said, and I might just repeat that the biggest barrier to women moving forward is women themselves, and then you yourself. If you have to be the one to say, no, I'm going to do it, and when the world around you can see that you mean business, they will support you. It's like Sania says, her husband supports her, her family supports her, because she has probably conveyed that she means business. She's gonna just do what she wants. So it's better to support her than to resist what she's doing. So it's that kind of support and collaboration.
Very good. And thank you, JJ, for putting that question across, because I was coming when Jalal said that the person who doesn't support them is the mother-in-law. But the main thing is that women don't support women. if they don't stick together, how can it be expected from men to be supporting women when they already have competition there as well? This morning talk which I was having for Women's Day, we were discussing this, that there is a lot of jealousy amongst women against other women as well. So we women need to stick together and support each other in this journey where we will be bringing all the changes. As Rosemary said, that it's not just in Pakistan, it's all over the world, and we all need to do our little bit to work towards it. Okay, Tehmina, welcome. I'm sorry we have waited that long to actually talk to you.
No, thank you.
Tehmina, please share with us that can women be empowered via technology? Or if so, is it women who need to be focused upon for empowerment or the environment they exist in? These are actually, it's a double question. So you can approach it together. Yes, please.
Thank you. I mean, some of my responses are going to echo what our esteemed panelists were talking about. So first and foremost, Assalamu alaikum to all the panelists and participants. And thank you, Zaufyshan and Aisha, for arranging this for us today. So I just want to start with some data, if you will. In 1995, as per World Bank provided data, the nation's female labor force population stood at about 12.51%. And as per projected data provided by the World Bank in 2020, this figure moved up a little bit to 22.18%. Given that women comprise more than 50% of Pakistan's population, it seems we still have a long way to go. That being said, there is digital transformation taking place in the nation's business landscape. An increased number of women are engaging in entrepreneurial activities to bridge the gender pay gap. As per Ms. Shanaz Ramzi, who's the president of the Women's Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Karachi South, she says that digital transformation is creating vast online business opportunities for women. Now, in a post-COVID world or following, the outbreak of COVID-19, women have taken advantage of online opportunities such as food delivery, educational platforms, even some tech setups. I also read in an interesting article that some ladies had initiated fitness studios online to cater to women who could no longer visit gyms. But that being said, these are all examples that pertain to options available in urban setups. And if we compare the breakdown of population, female versus male, in urban and rural setups in Pakistan, the majority of females reside in our rural setups. Further, of course, the availability of technology and hardware is definitely easier and more accessible in an urban environment, as opposed to such options being financially feasible in rural settings as well. So this kind of made me think, what is environmentally possible on a digital level for women in Pakistan who hail from rural setups? And here, one thing that popped into my head was social media. Given that women in rural setups do face a stigma if seen interacting physically with men, social media perhaps offers them an avenue to work or earn followers and monetary returns while sitting at home. When it comes to the age of smartphones and Wi-Fi, which is very common across rural setups in Pakistan, one medium that I've noticed a lot of women in rural setups using is YouTube, wherein, they'll post videos based on their typical routine or lifestyle in a village setting, such as posting a typical traditional dish and its recipe, or skin remedies, or music, and there are some women on these YouTube sites which do have a high number of followers. And typically, what are they doing? They're literally just posting a video about something that is part of their daily life. So, whereas, of course, there is a long way to go, I feel This was an interesting finding for me, particularly during COVID times in Pakistan, seeing some of these local videos crop up. And then, I started following some of them, and the number of followers for some of them is quite impressive. The other thing is, I think social media has created a lot more awareness across Pakistan. And even though we have a long way to go, I think it has, to some extent, given women that voice that they did not have earlier. I think that awareness has allowed them to know that if they are exploited or there are violations of certain rights, there is a platform on which they can at least post something or be heard or create awareness or get some attention even, which perhaps earlier they might not have been able to do to such an extent. My father also actually owns, some lands near Sahiwal, which is like in the eastern region, you could say, of Pakistan. And during some of my previous visits there, I've noticed a greater confidence in women, and they know more about things happening even in urban setups through the social media platform as well. So a lot of them, although not literate, are actually very active and actively following these sites as well. Coming to the aspect of environment, which I had wanted to bring up, and some of my panelists have actually been talking about it, including Sania. I think, of course, a disparity remains between what is possible towards empowering women in rural and urban settings within Pakistan. But I feel the journey has begun, albeit a slow one. My question in conclusion really is, who has created and endorsed the existing environment across Pakistan, where, the need to even seek empowerment as a woman kind of remains an ongoing discussion point as opposed to being a given. And I kind of wonder, what role do men play in all of this in terms of this environment being one which, for instance, as Jalal brought up, even permit the mothers-in-law to be the forces keeping certain women back despite their qualifications and their credentials and ability to work. So this was really what I had to share.
That's wonderful. And COVID has also helped a lot of people to manage their teams remotely. But in relation to newer businesses, what you were talking about, I have seen more young women, young girls start up their own businesses in COVID, and which is a good thing that has come out of it. They've become entrepreneurs. They said, okay, now everybody is working from home, so we can at least sell something, because online shopping was booming in this 1 year. A lot of organizations, mega textiles have increased their profits 4 times. So I've seen a lot of good come up with women empowering themselves as well. One question which one of the participants, audiences has put there, and because you are in technology and you were talking about women, how can they have a balance of personal and professional life? Now, in COVID, men were having a difficult time. They always used to complain that I don't get any personal time. So when they were home 24/7, you could hear their tiny silent screams. But for women, in ideal situation and even in COVID, what Sania was talking and other panelists were talking, how can they achieve that?
Well, okay, good question. I think women, from my observation in life, not that I am speaking for women, but, no bias here. I think women, from my observations and my own experience, have always been known to be multitaskers. I feel they're used to, they grow up knowing how to balance different facets of their lives. So I don't think it's a huge transition, because I think, as you rightly pointed out, it was perhaps more of an adjustment for men who were, used to kind of being away for X number of hours and dedicating that time to the workplace. Whereas women, I think, even when they're at work, we kind of learn to manage our time in terms of keeping in touch with children, or any of
Please
those
mute
elements.
kar dein.
So
Yes, please.
I don't see that, or I don't.
Unmute yourself, Tehmina. Unmute yourself, my dear.
Sorry, I realized that happened auto. So yeah, I think, I mean, I don't think it's much of an adjustment really. From all the people I know, my female colleagues, my relatives, friends, family, it's sort of, you know, been okay to balance it.
Great. Faiza, there's a question here from one of the audiences, and they say, what kind of skills do women need to acquire right at the start of their careers? Can you share 3 such skills or such attributes which they can actually develop in themselves?
I think the most required thing is to be able to communicate, be it in writing or in person. This is something that, with my experience in teaching young girls professional skills, communication is a big problem. And when I say communication, I'm not talking about speaking a certain language. I'm talking about being able to articulate what they're thinking and explaining themselves. I think the second most important skill is the ability to learn. So whatever work that you are doing, you will have to keep on learning new things and exploring new things. And I think not feeling bogged down or not feeling scared when learning new things can really help anyone who's getting into a new career. And I'm in our program, we are seeing this a lot, because a lot of women that we teach are some of them are teachers, some of them are nurses, some of them come from different professions and they want to get into tech. So they are taking that leap of faith and making that transition. So not being scared of learning something new and being able to communicate, I think these are really 2 really important skills.
Perfect. I think any other questions, Aisha or JJ? If you see, you can kindly display them here. In the meanwhile, I would like to thank all the panelists. You did great. I learned so much from you, and this knowledge sharing was just absolutely amazing. And I'm sure the audiences can relate to all these points that you have brought up. One thing which, in fact, in Octara newsletter about 15 years ago, I wrote was, what can help women achieve equity? And my answer was cultural lobotomy. Lobotomy is when a part of your brain is taken out, and what is in that brain is usually the culture. As one of you mentioned earlier, that, you know, in fact, Rosemary was saying that, you know, her mother brought this into there. She brought up her children the same way. But you see the learned helplessness of your mother, and it passes on from the daughter, and the sons and the daughters are raised in 2 different ways, either consciously or unconsciously. And these days, this morning, I was having a talk at Shoifat, and they were saying that girls these days do not have a career in mind. They want to finish their education so that they could get married. Marriage is a beautiful thing. I'm not against the institution of marriage, but that should not be the only goal in life. There is life beyond that. And I'd like to share that when I had my 3 kids, 10 years of my life, I did not work, and about 25 of my years, I've been working. So when the kids were young, I did not work. And trust me, after doing my master's in psychology, I used to think my IQ is dropping each and every day. I felt my self-esteem was going down. So young girls who are watching there, you might realize that, okay, it's good. Marriage is good, setting up, having a family and everything is good. But you need to do something for your own self, not for money, not for anything, but for your own self-confidence. And to all the mothers out there, they need to bring their children up in a way that the girl child feels empowered, and only empowered women can empower women. So thank you all for listening. And I once again thank all my lovely, lovely panelists. It was wonderful to be in a session with you. God bless you all. And I pass it on to JJ and Octara team. I want to thank the Octara team for organizing this, and we should have more of these. God bless you, and God bless all who are watching this.
Thank you, Zaufyshan, and thank you all the panelists for your valuable contribution and your thoughts. Now I request the participants that if you have any questions to all our panelists, you can ask them through chat box.
They have
And one
also
thing that I
shared. Yes, please, Aisha, continue.
Yeah, actually, we are receiving comments and like everybody is sort of thanking you guys and Octara for having this discussion. So, JJ, I would request to to say a few words regarding the session.
Hi, yeah. It's been a very interesting hour and 15 minutes. And it was also very interesting to hear all the panelists share their experiences and their thoughts and their advices for women who want to go into career. I just want to share two thoughts that came to my mind during the presentations by some of you. And these are, of course, wild thoughts, but I would like to share them. One was when Sajjad spoke about women coming from the rib of man. See? So the thought that came to my mind was regarding having read, I do not know whether it is right or wrong to have read that, whatever information it stuck to my mind was that when Adam and Eve were asked to leave the Garden of Eden as a punishment for having violated or eaten the apple, the punishment that was given to Adam and Eve was equal. So God meant for man and woman to be equal from that point onwards. And the punishment was equal by way of man was punished to go down to earth and work for his living, toil and do a lot of hard work so that he can survive. The woman was punished by way of she was supposed to bear children. The pain of bearing a children is the worst pain that one can have. But the whole process of bringing up a child later on becomes a loving act. But the pain that is there is a kind of a punishment that God has given to the woman. So man was given the punishment to work for the rest of his life, whether he's healthy or not. And the woman was required to do this, to bear the children. See, so equal punishment meant that also God treated both of them equally. This is just a thought, which of course it's just in a light manner. I shared that with you. The other thought that I have is regarding Rosemary, you touched upon the programming part, and I think that the programming part is not only coming from the mother or from the environment. The television and the radio, the media has played a very great part in reducing the woman to number two status in a work environment. And I'm reminded of, in fact, I also has read about it. There is this program on TV that was very famous at one time, Mad Men. I would recommend all of you to go through it. Mad Men is short for Medicine Men. So this is a whole series of programs which is based upon this fictional advertising agency where all these men who are working over there, who are advertising men, are always depicting themselves as leaders, and the role of leadership came through by way of a leader is supposed to be a man. He's supposed to be handsome. He's supposed to be tall. He's supposed to be very sophisticated. He's supposed to be authoritative. Supposed to be assertive. And that program was very popular in the West for many years. And it reinforces the notion that man is the leader and women, and because all the women in that program were either secretaries or they were always basically number two. They never rose to leadership positions. So that thought came to my mind about that program and that movie, that this is how programming is done without realizing that it is being programmed, that women play a secondary role in the corporate world, whereas men who are much more stronger and much more communicative, that is how the impression was given. Though I don't agree with it, that is how the programming is done. So it all boils down to leadership, you see, and I think every one of the panelists has touched upon the aspect of leadership, where depending on the leader, whether it's a man or woman, who creates the environment, who creates the culture where everybody is treated equally, man or woman. And I'm very, I'm not boasting myself, but I think I've been very much in my whole career, and I've had many leadership positions. I've always felt that the lady that was working in my department was always the better person to give them the assignment, because they did a much better job. And I also created an environment of empowering them, first of all, and then giving them an enabling environment to do whatever they could do to the best of their ability. Of course, I took responsibility for the consequences, but there were a lot of ladies who worked with me, who I am very happy to see today are in positions where they have been able to break the glass ceiling, despite their backgrounds, despite the fact they didn't come from blue chip schools or universities. So I think leadership is very important to create that culture, that environment where people can be trusted, both men and women, especially in our culture, women, and nurture them to become as good as well as the men that they're working with. So those are the two things I thought I'd share with you. And as a good example, Aisha had come to me about a month back, or maybe a little more than a month back, saying that International Women's Day is falling on the 8th of March. So should we do a program? I said, why don't you do a program? Would you like to take a lead on it? And she said, yes, of course. And then just after that, I moved away. I just have not been involved except in the last few days when you guys were sharing your questions or your comments on the chat group. So I think she did a very good job. She did a good job of getting 6 people together. I mean, again, I don't think there has been other programs where they had men also involved. Mostly it was always women, and she managed to get 6 of you very bright young people to speak about an issue that is of great importance to our corporate world, to the nation. So she's done a good job in collecting that, and I would say that despite so many programs that are going on right now, even to later in the day, I think we had a good attendance of close to about 45 to 50 participants who have been with us, and I'm sure that they have also benefited from your comments. So, Aisha, I'd like to thank you very much. Along with Aisha, there was Zainab, again, another very hardworking lady who has done very well for herself as well as for us. And thank you, Aisha, thank you, Zainab, for putting this whole program together. But most of all, I'd like to thank Zaufy for keeping everybody, within the thread without losing interest or without losing any kind of attention. And thank you very much, Zaufy. Thank you, Rosemary, all the way from Canada. You've been always a good friend of Octara, very helpful, waking up in 3 o'clock in the morning, lending us your webinar site, and being there, and perhaps she's running short of sleep. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, the other participants, with reference to Jalal and Syed Sajjad Raza, Faiza, Sania, Sattar, Tehmina, and then we had Rosemary, of course. So I hope I've covered everybody. In case I'm not, please forgive me. But thank you very much, all participants, with all your interesting insights about this very serious issue of equality between men and women at the workplace. And last of all, thanks to all those who have joined us on the webinar, especially participants who come from Pakistan Paper, from Bayer, from Multinet, from Karachi Electric, from Bank Islami, HBL, ABB, Aga Khan University, PEL, TCS, TPL, Parco. all of you have given us the encouragement, the support, and the incentive for us to do more of these programs. And we hope that you will continue joining us and encouraging us and working with us on this. So with that, I would like to thank everyone again for the hour and a half that we have spent together, and wish you a very nice evening wherever you are. Of course, Rosemary, very nice day to you.
One last thing.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for the appreciation and enabling us, like myself and my team members, to put together this program. It won't be possible if you were not there, and it happened because of all of your guidance and support of all my team members. Lastly, I would request all the panelists and the participants to switch on their videos and have a group photo with their thumbs up. With their thumbs up.
Are you going to take the photo?
Sarim will take a photo for us.
Yeah, sure.
So
you might want everyone else to put on their videos.
Yeah.
Unless they don't want to.
So if you are comfortable, participants, you can switch on your camera and we can have a group photograph.
Okay, Sarim, thank you so much for your support as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See you in another webinar.